And welcome. Today is our fourth round of Fathom's remote roundtable series. So great to see a few familiar faces already. My name is Steve Kessen. I'm our CEO here at Fathom, and it's delighted to facilitate a conversation with everybody on the line today. And this is as we've been doing the last few weeks. It's an opportunity for us marketers to come together when we can't rub elbows, with our colleagues every day within our offices. We decided to put together a mechanism for marketers to come together and really talk about topics that are important to marketers today. And the topic of today's conversation is growth-focused SEO. SEO is one of the longest standing digital marketing tactics and strategies. However, there's such a wide variety of experience that people have with SEO. So we're going to explore all realms of that today. Before we get into the topic, as I do every week, I just want to give a reminder on a few housekeeping items to manage the flow of the conversation today. You're all experts at this by now, but remember to go at least on unmute when you're ready to chat. And I would like to use this as an opportunity to invite folks to share your video if you're in a position to do so. I know we're all operating in non-optimal settings, but it's always nice to be able to put a face to a name. So thank you guys for joining the video portion of this as well. If you do need any technical support throughout the conversation, we do have some support available just in the chat function. So go ahead, type a message in the chat function, and we'll be there to support. And additionally, we're going to have various opportunities to connect. And really, the spirit of this is not intended to be us at Fathom, just sharing our perspective. We want to be facilitators of a dialogue that's really focused on an important topic. So we want everyone to be ready to engage. And really, your first chance of engagement is going to come by way of poll questions. So the first poll question we're going to start with today really speaks to helping us get a little bit better perspective of where each of us are coming to this conversation from your vantage point. You have a ton of experience with SEO and it's your primary responsibility, or hey, I'm familiar with it, it's not my responsibility, but it's certainly important to know. So if we could go ahead and fill out that response, that would be great. As you're filling those out, I do want to offer a chance for us to do a few introductions. I think it's always helpful to get a sense for some of our friends that are on the line, knowing that as we've gone through the last few weeks of these, there's been really great collaboration amongst the marketers on the phone as you guys share ideas and perspectives with one another. So maybe I'll start with a few folks to give an introduction and then open it up for a second. Deb, why don't we start with you if you don't mind? Good to see you. And maybe just give a quick introduction to your organization, role, and anything you might be hoping to get out of today's conversation. Oh, you're on mute, Deb, unfortunately.
See, of course,
I
broke rule 1.
You got it.
I'm Deb Monkman. I am the digital marketing manager at Servo Worldwide Relocation and Moving. Been here just 2 years. Current client with Fathom. Servo's been with Fathom for several years. I actually don't know exactly how many. But oversee the website and social, external, internal communications, you name it, anything digital falls under my realm, including SEO, which I'm actually fairly new to. I know enough to be dangerous, and I drive John crazy all the time with all of my questions. I don't know, just trying to learn from anyone else, their insight, what's going on, what they're doing. I'm sure that's what most people are looking for. I know we just launched our new website, so any new tidbits I can pick up from people are always helpful.
Fantastic. So great to have you. Thanks for joining. Let's go ahead. Trisha, I know we've seen you a couple of times. I'd love for you to maybe introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Trisha Ball from Central Michigan University. We've been working with Fathom for quite a while now. SEO is not my primary responsibility. I'm a graphic designer at CMU, but I am interested in learning more about it.
Very good. So good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Maybe I'll call one more. Maybe we'll go on the phone list here. Vanda, I see you're on the line. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock out here in California. And I have my camera off because I'm working in my backyard, and I'll be honest, no makeup. I think I brushed my hair this morning. I may have brushed my hair this morning. I don't know.
Safe zone. It's all good.
So I am the marketing coordinator for a company called Trimlock. We are a rubber and plastic extrusion manufacturer out here in California. SEO and managing the website is one of my primary responsibilities. As the marketing coordinator, I report to our marketing director, who also happens to be the owner and the vice president and the COO and the new product development manager. So I wear many hats. We've been with you guys for, I think, about 3 years now. And I know we saw performance leaps and bounds when we switched over from our other agency. And I'm here just to learn a little bit more. I ask a lot of questions. I'm not very good at this. Thankfully, I work with a great team there at Fathom. And I'm just here to learn, see what you guys have to say. And if I can come away with 1 or 2 pieces of information to help me out, that would be great.
Very good. So good to have you. Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on, especially in the morning over there.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Maybe I'll open it up. Anybody just open call, want to share, hey, this is what I'm hoping to get out of the conversation today, just so that we cater the conversation in the right direction. Yeah, Holly, go ahead.
I'm sort of new to the SEO as well. So I take care of content with the president at Company Tribes out of Utah. And we have software, and we have a virtual training session that we do. So I'm involved in that, but I sort of took on another piece of it. I don't really manage the website so much as the content that goes in it. And I have a podcast now called The Culture Factor. And what I was hoping to get out of this was the best ways that I can sort of market my products from behind the scenes. I'm posting on LinkedIn and Instagram and so forth. But, I know there's probably a lot more that I could be doing to make it come up in people's feeds and make Google happy and all that. So I'm not an SEO person, as you can tell. I do have the concept of keywords down, and I do my best to include that with, put the transcripts in the blog and, all that. But I'm sure I'm doing the novice approach to it. So.
Well, that's a pretty common place of entry on SEO. So great to have you. I know you were on last week as well. So nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we go ahead and jump in? And there'll be other opportunities for introduction discussion throughout. We really encourage everybody to participate. And to give you just a little bit of perspective around Fathom, just so you have a good sense of who you're having the conversation with today. So at Fathom, we're a digital marketing firm, and we believe that strong strategy starts with deep roots. And really that's in 3 core areas. The first is your business. We recognize that every business is unique. We certainly bring experience from a variety of different industries, but we don't bring assumptions. We really take the time to understand your unique challenges. And then we pair that with our own deep expertise in the second pillar of digital. So we really focus on staying on the front edge of what's happening in digital to offer a critical point of view to you and your team. And at the end of the day, it's all about driving an outcome, a business result. And we collaborate and work very closely with our client partners to make sure that we're driving an outcome and we're measuring with clear metrics. And to give you just one more step of context, today's conversation is going to be focused on SEO, but if you look in this middle column, search engine optimization is part of what we do, but not the entirety of what we do. Paid search, social media, marketing automation are already sessions in which we've had on this series. And we also get into content analytics and so on. Working significantly in higher education, healthcare, B2B services, financial services, technology, and so on. And at the end of the day, we're there to be a partner to help drive business outcomes in terms of what matters most to our clients. So enough about Fathom. I do want to introduce the team of experts that we have aligned for you guys on the call today. So, you know, we have Rob Hostler, who's our SEO manager at Fathom, Missy Williams, who's our senior strategist in SEO. We've got Francesca Lupino. She's our senior manager for creative writing. And, you know, and this also, I think, speaks to you, Holly. There's such a strong combination from content and SEO. So I think Francesca brings a really strong perspective on that combination, along with our SEO experts. And then I'm going to pass it over to John Castronova. John is our director of SEO here at Fathom. And we're going to give John just a few minutes to offer a quick take on what he sees in SEO.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you, and thank you for joining. So when I was thinking about, you know, how we approach SEO today versus how we approached it 2 years ago or 5 years ago, I thought about a quote from John Mueller, who is a web analyst at Google and frequently interfaces with the SEO industry through weekly Google chats where people get to go and ask him questions. And one fortunate soul got to ask him, what's the secret to ranking well? And his response, and I quote, was, sorry, there isn't one. And he wanted to explain exactly what that means. But, you know, that can be a little bit frustrating from someone who works in SEO and for the marketing industry, where we're just really concerned about getting our content out there and showcasing the value that we have in the market. And really, when we're, you know, 5-10 years ago, there maybe was a secret formula that we could do. We could look at links. We could look at making sure that the headers are optimized and the titles are optimized. But what Google's done over the last few years is focus a lot more on understanding the user intention and the intention behind the things people are searching for, so that they can be a user-friendly search results as people go and search for different things. And with that in mind, it aligns more to our fundamentals in marketing, which makes it both a little bit more simpler to execute an SEO strategy and also a little bit more complicated. So when we're thinking about modernizing SEO strategies, and what we do here at Fathom is making sure that we have an audience-first approach, understanding who you're trying to market to, understanding what they're searching for, and trying to match that intention with the content that we have on their website, so that when we do bring those individuals to the website through search, they're engaging. They're not just bouncing, and they're doing the things that we expect them to do through that website. That means communicating your value proposition that is going to be unique to your industry, that sets you apart from everyone else. That's actually a direct, well, not a direct quote, but a paraphrase from what John Mueller offered as advice. Talk about what brings value to your industry, what makes you special, what makes you unique. And then the really, you know, with that, because Google is so focused on the user and because things change so often, we're in an environment now where we see that every day. Google is constantly playing with search results. They're changing up how featured snippets appear. They're changing where traditional results play in. They're changing how local results play in. And because of that, we also have to be up to date on what's changing from a technology perspective, how they're using artificial intelligence, how does HTML5 play into how we optimize websites, and how Google views these different elements to make sure that when we are trying to show up in search results, that Google has no problem whatsoever in understanding your website and how to get around. And probably the most challenging thing now, because we need to be focused on the user, because the site has to be technically sound, and because we have to have an audience-driven approach, one of the hardest things we have to think about is how we're aligned internally. So how is marketing talking with our development team, talking with our product team, talking with the CMO, the CEO, the CFO, in aligning all of these different elements that then executed through your website, so that you're achieving those goals through organic search, rather than just being so focused on checking off a list of all the different optimization tactics, but being focused on deriving those goals and achieving a good user experience that's going to drive performance both through search results and when users get to your website.
Great. Thanks, John. And I love the overall take here. I think it's pretty interesting because if you would have done this 5 years ago, it would have been a different perspective. And if you would have done it another 3 years prior, it would have been a completely different perspective. And I think that's one of the unique things about SEO, just how much it has evolved and become so much more sophisticated over the years. Maybe I'll start with this. The reality is, as I talk to clients, and I'm sure our team does as well, when we're starting to talk to somebody about SEO, it seems like there's always one roadblock or one challenge that stands out. So actually, if we could actually put the screen back up, because I want to use that for context, if we may, for a moment. In the areas that we have identified here, where would you see as the biggest roadblock or challenge in your organization? Is it along the lines of, oh, look, we've already got the post results here. So crafting direct content, and then also understanding what's possible. So let's start there. What are the biggest roadblocks that you're seeing in your organization? You obviously already had a point of view from filling out the poll. I'd love to have a few people, share what roadblocks you're running into. And maybe to kick us off, Rob or Missy, where do you normally see, clients, struggle, if you will, in terms of, what are the most prevalent roadblocks that you run into, and what are some ways that you guys help them think through that?
I can go. So it definitely varies. Every company is different. And so, there's different numbers on their teams. There's different types of products and regulations. I know on a number of clients there's a lot of regulation, and especially in the healthcare space, where there's a lot of different levels of compliance and legal approvals, and going through brand guidelines, and where implementation doesn't always happen and doesn't always happen quickly. And that's, I think there's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of different people. I will say then there's, the flip side of that, where I know Vonda is probably a good example of this. We joke all the time that Vonda is, she's always saying my whole marketing team, which she doesn't have, it's her. So, a lot is reliant on, approvals, or, the work that we need from one person. So I think those are probably the two biggest areas where, from our perspective, what I feel like we, is maybe a roadblock to getting things implemented, or the information that we need in order to really move that needle for our clients.
Great. Rob, you want to round out there?
Yeah, and sort of to add on to that, I think one of the other roadblocks really is sort of proving that value of the content. How do you really dig in to say, okay, this is the content that's really working for me, and what do I need to do to give it more legs, to give it more juice out there, to put it right out in front of the audience, really to, find the resources that are out there to build that content, to create it. I think a big roadblock is sort of that value proof that a lot of we run into a lot of times is how do we prove that ROI at the end of the day.
So Rob, you brought up the topic of content here, and I saw Holly drop that in the chat message. And feel free to put your comments in the chat message as well. Sometimes it's maybe a little easier to participate in that regard. Holly, I don't know if you'd be willing to share or expound upon a little bit of, this challenge of content and what's working, and there's just such a tight interplay between content marketing, your content strategy, as well as what's right for SEO, what's right for the audience, what's right for the bots, right? And make that all work together. I'd love to have your voice, maybe go a level or two deeper on that.
So you know, our website dives into company culture because that's what our products are. You know, we have an app and we have the virtual platform and the live platform, which I mentioned briefly.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, I'm just bringing that up, not to sell it. I just to give you context. So what we do is company culture. You know, our app is about employee engagement and building connections. Our virtual and our live is about facilitated networking events and if a company has like an annual meeting, that type of thing.
Yep.
So what was born out of that was, well, we should do a podcast where we just talk about company culture because that's sort of a bigger conversation. And we felt that leaders of companies could share so much knowledge with people and what works, what doesn't, how do you build a healthy company culture and that type of thing. So I'm giving you that backstory because as I've built out the podcast, you know, all of the interviews, we are talking about company culture. We're talking about company culture during the time of COVID. We're talking about company culture post-COVID. And so I am putting content out there in the form of the podcast on everything, you know, iTunes, Spotify, blah, blah, blah. I'm building the transcript in the blog page on our website. I'm on LinkedIn, posting it on the company LinkedIn page, my LinkedIn page, my boss's LinkedIn page. I'm putting all the hashtags, I'm putting all those keywords, company culture, COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to build out all of the things that I think people are looking for or Googling or whatever. So I've been working really hard on that. But at the end of the day, when I simply pull up my phone here and type in company culture or culture factor, I don't come up on page 1. So I am looking for that secret sauce, I guess. I know there's no secrets to ranking well, like you said, and it's constantly evolving. But how, like, are there certain words I'm supposed to be using? Are there certain platforms am I supposed to be using? Are there certain sources I should be tagging that are, you know, up there in the Google universe that it makes them so happy?
Right.
I guess I just feel like I'm a little lost because I don't think that I'm remiss in posting content that targets my audience and is direct, like you said. I just feel like I'm not sure that I'm getting it right from that back end viewpoint where Google looks for those pretty words or whatever. I'm sorry, I filled a lot of space.
No, that's helpful. I think it's, and you really bring upon the point of bringing the technical component as well as the audience and creating value component, the content creative component, and it's really those things coming together. John, were you looking to weigh in on that?
Yeah, that's Holly. That is really great context, and frankly, something that you know, we see a lot. You know, one of the things that I'm interested in, kind of as a follow-up question, is when you mentioned those phrases, right? You know, company culture, and forgive me, the other phrase that you mentioned there. Are those you know, when you're putting out this content, are those the only 2 phrases that you're thinking about, or are you also thinking about other companion phrases or other relevant phrases that could be relevant to your market and to that content that you're producing?
I believe I am, you know, in terms of the conversations that take place that we transcribe and plant on the website, in terms of the, you know, the little bit of content I write above a picture of who I've interviewed where I try to highlight in the hashtags. I am putting things in like C-suite, leadership, executives, employees, company culture, business, iTunes, you know, at iTunes, at Google Play, at Spotify, you know, like I'm trying to think of like all of those things, you know, work from home, WTF, working remotely, COVID-19. Like, I'm trying to hashtag it to death without it being a paragraph of just hashtags. Like, I'm trying to be a little considerate about what I choose that really taps into the particular conversation, that particular interview each time, because they're slightly different, you know, like one was with female founders. So I did some hashtagging relevant to that, you know, hashtag female founders, women in business, women leaders, you know, work, you know, that kind of thing. So I tried to, like, each interview addresses company culture, and I put some of the same hashtags, but then they each have a few that are just a little bit more pinpointing their conversation.
John, I would love for you to weigh in potentially, you know, and I think this brings in the conversation around there, you know, some might think that SEO, there's the black box and you can't quite figure it out, and Google's, you know, very tight-lipped as to the exact way the algorithm works. They give you hints along the way. But there are also tools that can help marketers navigate through this. So John, you know, might you also give some perspective on, hey, here are a couple of tools to help it, so you're not flying blind. You do have some perspective.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I'm hesitant to say, because it used to be an old strategy of talking about one keyword per page, and that's a bit of an older idea. The gentleman that runs Search at Bing even came out and said, maybe we should stop thinking about keyword research and start thinking more about user intent. So the general recommendation that I have around it is to, one, understand the unique theme of every piece of content that you're putting out there, and then what's that phrase or two that you can attach to that unique theme that you really want to go after, that you really want this specific post to be able to rank for, and then think about all your content as a footprint that allows you to get in front of everyone that may be searching for phrases relevant, in this case, for as an example, to company culture, and broaden it that way. And a lot of the approaches, you know, that we take with our clients is understanding what's the full suite of phrases that we can go after and optimize for every single one of these, that knowing that there's a lot of competition out there and we're not going to rank #1 for every single phrase, but being able to reach a point where we are getting on page 1 consistently for a group of phrases related to that particular theme means that we're going to be creating awareness in front of individuals that we know are going to engage with that content, because we've done the research to test those phrases. Now, to look at the phrases, some of the tools that I like to use, especially ones that are free. I believe SEMrush has some free content when you look up for queries. I think, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Ahrefs offers a free version, and then it gets into more advanced tools like BrightEdge if you need some more advanced partnership and are willing to pay for it. But the other thing that I really just like doing, I like using some of the tools from Google too. So Google Trends just gives us a good idea of what's going on in terms of trends for particular keywords. For example, online courses shot up over the last couple of weeks, and there's a clear a rise for trends around that phrase, and even using search volume from Google AdWords keyword tool is great to understand what keywords are going to be relevant and which are not, and they even offer a tool that gives you suggestions when you type in a keyword as well. So those are some of the ones I use. Rob or Missy or Francesca, is there anything else you want to throw into that list?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in.
No, we're all excited.
I'd love
Go
to
ahead,
jump in
Francesca.
from like a content planning perspective. I know it can certainly be hard, especially when you're playing in that thought leadership space where you're trying to compete with well-established brands, and it may feel like you never are going to reach that top position. And that's why it's so important for me to be working really closely with our SEO team, where they're doing that really detailed keyword research, where they're looking at how many searches every single month are coming up for all these different relevant keywords that are relevant to your content. And finding one that's kind of that middle ground where it's not, you know, the highest search term, because there's probably a huge brand outranking you that you may never be able to top, but there could be a term that's going to have a medium level of search volume that you can achieve, because not everybody is going after that term, but it's still certainly relevant to your audience and people are searching for it. So that can be a really good starting place as far as figuring out that more thought leadership content where you're trying to play in a big field.
Yeah, the other one that I was going to mention, if you have Google Search Console connected, which is a free tool to your website, you actually really can get a lot of insight into what keywords are driving traffic. So what keywords you know, it doesn't necessarily have what you're ranking for, but well, it does have, you know, average position, but it shows you how many, you know, how many times you're showing up, how many people are actually clicking on that term and that click-through rate. So you can see what keywords specifically are driving actual clicks to your website, and to be better optimizing those, even if you're showing up low, to understand that, hey, if we really, you know, focus our content on these related keywords and making them prominent on the page, that can really help to increase rankings for that particular keyword. And you already know that that is a keyword that's driving traffic. So that's definitely an area to look at as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Google's great. Google Search Console, they got a host of tools, but really your one of your best tools itself is just Google itself. Just Googling that phrase, see what's coming up. We're talking about search intent. So Google's telling you right there what they think that the user search intent is. So making sure your content matches that. Are they returning a bunch of videos and images? Are they returning a featured snippet box that says, you know, somebody's really just looking for an answer, a quick answer, or are they providing more kind of detailed search results, like a knowledge graph that you should probably, you know, kind of build out your content? And who else is showing up? Are there competitors showing up on there? Are there publications showing up on there? Are they product and listing offerings? That can really give you kind of an idea of, you know, is the content I'm producing, does this match what Google says the user intent is? And do I need to actually create a different kind of content to match that user intent?
No, great conversation all around. You know, we've hit on tools and, you know, techniques you use. We've talked a little bit about that connection between content and SEO as a whole. I want to offer some space here for, is there any particular question that anybody that's on the line has that says, hey, you know, I'm running through this challenge, or I'd love to get additional perspective or help on X, Y, and Z around SEO, or something you just might be curious about around SEO when you're, that you'd like to ask. So let me just open it up for any open questions that anybody would like to ask around SEO, or topics you'd like to dig into. I've got another topic that is almost always on the conversation. And if you do have any other topics, go ahead and just drop those in the chat function as well. But it's about measuring return on SEO, right? So, you know, we're in this really interesting time, you know, with COVID, and what's the impact that it's having on marketing across the board. And sometimes marketing budgets are, depending on your organizations, looked at a little bit more closely now than they were 2 months ago, as fiscal responsibility is just so important. So so how does your organization go about measuring success, you know, within organic? We've just got the poll question on there, but I'd also love to have a few people voice over of, hey, how are you measuring success right now? And maybe Fathom team, maybe you guys want to jump in and share, you know, maybe what are some best practices that you see in terms of how clients are measuring, and also potentially give perspective on maybe what's the process that somebody goes to. Maybe they originally started measuring this, and then as time goes on, they get a bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, I'm seeing the results here. And it's really interesting because SEO can get a bit complicated when you're trying to measure ROI. Part of the reason is because SEO, I like to call it, it's an always on strategy, and not just because someone can pull out their phone at any time and search for whatever pops in their head, but because it can engage with users. Your content, your site can engage with users through search at any point in the journey where they happen to be, whether it's building in brand awareness, whether it's closing the deal and nurturing that initial visit. They could be searching at any particular time, and you need to have content there ready to be able to take that individual to the next level. And what's interesting is when we're talking about understanding the impact of organic search on your overall goals for your organization, we also have to think about what content do you have aligned to those different stages of the journey, and then what are the KPIs aligned with that content. So one example that I like to use is for universities, whereas users that are searching for something like, what can I do with an anthropology degree? There's a couple 100,000 searches a month for that phrase, so there's a lot of interest in that. But a person searching for that and landing on a university website is probably not ready to apply yet because they're asking questions. However, they could be ready to request some information. And what I've seen is that with organic search as the last click, it's a 2-to-1 ratio where organic search is often driving that last click for request information, but they are acting in an assist role when they're driving the application further on down the funnel. So understanding, I think, where your KPIs are at and engaging users at different stages of the funnel, and then looking at where organic search contributes to those things from a last click perspective and an assist perspective is going to give you a lot of clarity on where you should be investing your time. Because in a scenario like that, our biggest investment is going to be on optimizing for non-branded keywords, looking at long tail opportunities and having a lot of content that talks to those long tail keywords that are relevant to your organization, and then drawing those initial clicks into your website and measuring what those KPIs are at that point, and then looking later on to see, are you getting them across the finish line and closing that prospect, and looking at that from an assist role in organic search. And that's where I see SEO offering the most amount of value in that full funnel journey, and where we can plug and play there. Rob, Missy, I don't know if you have any other experience there, or if anyone has some experiences they like to share along that line, or different experiences.
Yeah, I would say it definitely depends on the type of client. There's some where an e-commerce site, we're looking at revenue, request for information, request for samples, a higher education site, as you mentioned, really looking at that customer journey. We might have different KPIs for each of those stages. So, in the application stage, of course, number of applications. But before that, we look at leads, requests for information, down to, how many people actually confirmed their enrollment. And then, other sites we might be looking at lead, qualified leads, really understanding where those leads are coming from, if they turned into sales, if we can get that, view from the client. I think those are probably the biggest KPIs, but when we really look into what's driving, to really dig into, is this successful or not? I think the things like, traffic obviously makes a difference, but really diving into, what pages are driving the most traffic? Am I seeing an increase or decrease in bounce rate, and time on site? Viewing more pages. So, basically engagement metrics to see, if people are engaging with my content or if they're leaving, to really understand, how people are consuming that content on your site, and if they're converting, setting up goals in Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics to make sure you're able to track that full funnel of where they came in, if they ultimately completed a goal, and maybe what pages, in that path led to that.
No, I think that's great. Any questions come up from anybody in the audience where you want to go deeper on this? Otherwise, I want to shift gears because we haven't had a chance to talk about technical, which I know is the most exciting part of SEO. But before I shift gears there, anything else on the return that folks would like to discuss today?
Hey, Steve,
John,
maybe
quick question.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Deb.
Sorry. No, I was just going to ask, and what you guys both have been talking about with KPIs is, do you think it's fair assessment to say you can almost start at the end and work your way back? So you're talking all the way from SQLs and closed won deals, and then how do they make their way into the funnel from the very beginning all the way to what did they search for in Google? And maybe that's, because I think that's what we're going to look for in our next strategy with our, we're struggling with our client, our audience of our Advantage leads, because they're completely different than any other audience that we are trying to get right now. And we're struggling because we're B2B and we think they're searching B2C, at least that's a guess. And I think we're going to look to do some research on that. I just make sure that I'm understanding that's more of what you guys are talking about, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely can work that way, and I think I like to see it this way too. So one of the challenges that we have in organic search is that I want to say it was about 10 years ago. Google no longer provides us information at the keyword level outside of things like clicks, impressions, and search volume. So we're unable to tie sessions to a keyword, for example, or tie a lead to a particular set of keywords, for example. We can, however, still tie them to given pages. So I think looking backwards is a way that can definitely work if we see that we've got this many qualified leads, and compare that to the previous quarter where we didn't have the level of content that we had on the site that was geared toward getting those type of leads. And we saw an increase in the number of keywords that we were ranking for, and in the number of impressions that we were getting for those keywords, and potentially more people searching directly for your brand because we've done the job to build brand awareness. And if we could tie that all the way back from, hey, we got some more leads compared to the previous year, and that's because we've also had more impressions and better rankings than the previous year, those two things tend to correlate. And as we continue to optimize content and continue to put new content on the site that targets different aspects of your business and of your organization, then we can continue to look at that quarter over quarter, year over year, and make sure that correlation is going to be consistent. Drawing correlations is going to be key ever since Google took away the ability to look at keywords. But yes, absolutely, we can look backwards.
Great. Thanks, Deb. Jim, it looks like you maybe were looking to jump in there.
Yeah, just related to that question, honestly, is one really around, we've heard from a number of people who have mentioned, hey, I'm not directly involved or responsible for SEO or organic performance, but as maybe somebody who is, in a related role, but we may not have visibility, where should we start? What should someone who's not directly responsible for SEO today be asking his or her counterpart in terms of more visibility? What might I ask for as a way to get more information?
Rob or John or Missy, which one of you guys want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. I'll go ahead, John. I'll jump off what you got to say.
No, yeah, sorry. Probably the first thing that I like to do, and where I've had my most successful relationships, is getting in the room with an individual. Now, maybe we'll do it over Zoom now, but excuse me. one of my favorite phrases is when you're relaunching a website is I like to plant myself on your couch. And I tell this to clients that are going through that process. And part of the reason that I like to do that is because there's usually a number of people involved in getting to a place where you relaunch your website. It's going to be individuals in content, individuals in development, the third parties you're working with to design your website, product managers, not to mention a ton of other decision makers at the leadership level. They need to sign off on budgets and everything. And part of the reason I like to, plant myself on your couch, I had a mentor once that literally got locked in a room for a few weeks while a client launched their website. And part of the reason I like to go with that metaphor is because we need to have conversations with all those individuals and align on goals and align on strategy. So getting in a room with all those individuals, maybe all at once, maybe just individual conversations, and aligning on where your goals need to be and what you think is important about organic search and about the website is going to be that first step, because you're going to need all those decision makers along the way to be able to get to that level of optimization. Sorry, Rob, what else were you going to add there?
No, I think that's, pretty much sums up really well. Unless really have a nice, clear, open dialogue with what really our end goal is, what we're really working with. I've had conversations with, we're getting judged on, hey, we don't rank for X keyword, right? Well, really, at the end of the day, is ranking for that keyword really going to be what drives the results and drives the goals, drives the awareness, and drives profits and ROI. Really, we really need to dig in and identify what that is. It might be ranking for X keyword. If it's an awareness play and you want to be at the top of your industry or field, maybe you do want to go after some really highly competitive, search phrases. But in most cases, it's really just identifying that content that's going to really drive that that value and that end goal, which could be sessions, it could be a conversion point, it could be a keyword. So really, those conversations are key.
Rob, let's build upon that point for a moment, because I think what you just said, lends itself to a topic that we haven't really dove into yet, which is paid search and organic. And how do those two things, work together? You talk about the idea of, hey, maybe there's a high volume keyword, we're not ranking very high, yet not sure how important it is to our business. How would you use paid search maybe for that strategy? And just in general, how do you talk about, paid and SEO and how those guys collaborate?
Yeah, I think, paid, we always talk about paid and SEO synergy, together, right? Combined together, they're a great strategy to really go after, maximum visibility. Any number of different, studies you see out there will say, hey, if you rank, if you have a paid search ad at the top of the page and you have an SEO, organic listing near the top of the page, you're going to, your click-through rate, your ability to drive traffic to your website increases, X amount. So it's really that visibility there. The other thing is there's certain areas where, frankly, because of the way Google has now set up the organic search results page, they might have 4 paid listings and then locally return results and then an image result. Sometimes really ranking high organically isn't really even possible. So then you really need to double down there at the paid realm. Vice versa, if those organic listings are relevant and you can get that organic listing right underneath those paid search ads, you can increase your chances there. So it's really looking at it from both sides of the mirror there, and really driving in there.
I'll add on to that too, in the sense that, if we think about organic search as a top of funnel strategy, an opportunity to build awareness. So individuals searching for non-branded phrases likely haven't made a decision about a brand or an organization that they want to pursue as a solution, as a next step to whatever problem it is that they're trying to solve and they're trying to search for. It's an opportunity for organic search to capture that traffic, maybe through a quick KPI of here's some more information, sign up for our emails, get their email address, get a little bit more information, and then paid search through a potentially a branded campaign to then meet that user again in search. with some additional more targeted content that then takes them across the finish line. So we can think about paid search and organic search also working that way of nurturing leads from top to bottom, and even in some cases, vice versa as well. If in paid search we've run a branded or run a non-branded campaign going after a particular set of keywords, they get the click there, then we need to ask ourselves, what are the branded phrases individuals are searching for? What's the page showing up in search results that's going to capture those clicks? And is that the right page that we need users landing on to take that next step, knowing we're building up awareness through a different channel? So having those conversations along the funnel is also really effective in organic search and paid search playing well together.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes that case for that more detailed keyword research once again, as well as being able to use all of the marketing data available, whether it's organic or paid, to really understand what customers are searching at different parts of the funnel so that you can be delivering the right content to them for those specific searches, and getting really detailed with how you're trying to target your content across that decision-making journey.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the conversation today. And it just strikes me as I process this conversation, I think too often people think about SEO in terms of title tags and technical and those components of SEO. But if you just look at the span of the conversation over the last hour, we've talked about content, we've talked about podcasts and those sorts of things. We've talked about social media and how does that work with SEO. We've talked a lot about content and creative and the intersection of how that works with SEO, analytics and measuring a return, paid advertising. And, and I think that just underlines the point that that was really, outlined in the quick take that John shared from the beginning is, in so many ways, our SEO strategy is a marketing strategy because it does touch so much more than I think the general marketing public even realizes how important SEO is and how it really works with all of your other efforts. So we could go on and on in this discussion as there's so much to unpack here. But unfortunately, we are coming to the end of our time today. If you do have other questions that you would want to go deeper on as it relates to SEO or really any topic, please feel free to reach out to us directly. You can go ahead and enter a question or a note in the chat, or you can just follow up with an email or call into us, and we'd be more than happy to have a more detailed conversation about what you're trying to solve for. At this point, I do want to share that we do have more remote roundtable sessions coming up around the corner. So the next 3 that are on the agenda, and once again, we do these every Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And next week, we're going to be talking about healthcare. So we're doing industry focus on healthcare. Fathom does quite a bit of work within the healthcare space and adjacent spaces. We did an industry focus conversation a few weeks back around higher education. So please join us for that if that's pertinent to you. And then May 14th, change management is going to be the topic of discussion. And I'll tell you this, and people have heard me say this time and time, I feel like change management is almost half of our job in terms of marketing leadership and so on. So there is such a strong connection to how do you do change management right as it relates to this interesting component. Not only is SEO a central point within all phases of marketing, marketing is becoming a central component in terms of all phases of the business. So us as marketers, really need to tap into the power of change management to effectively drive our responsibilities forward. And then on the 21st, we've left that open for open conversation. We've covered a broad array of topics, be it channel-specific topics, industry-type topics, and so on. So for the 21st, we're going to really have more of an open forum for marketers to get together and collaborate on what's on their minds on that day. So would encourage you to go ahead and register for those upcoming events. Appreciate all of the participation and collaboration in today's conversation. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks.